Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April Superintendent's Webcast. We have a really full agenda for you, which I'll go over with you right now. Next slide, please. All right, we've got KDE updates from Tony Cons-Tatman. We have the mighty Chair Lou Young on with us to give us some updates from the Kentucky Board of Education. We've got some friends with us from the Department of Veterans Affairs to talk about the tuition waiver process. We have ATC updates from our Career and Technical Education team here at KDE. We will have an update on the United We Learn Council with our Chief Performance Officer, Karen Dodd. We have an assessment update with Rhonda Sims and an EPSB update from Byron Darnell. Brief legislative update from Brian Perry, but we'll spend most of our legislative time on the guidance that just came out on bills with emergency clauses that was released yesterday. Todd Allen, Brian Perry, and Meredith Brewer will walk you through the components of that, and then we'll end with questions and answers. So that's what our agenda looks like today. We've got a lot to work through. So we'll jump right in. I'll hand things off to you, Tony.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We'll go ahead with the next slide. So this one is fresh off the presses. We have just announced our new Educator recognition program. This was just released today. This is an opportunity for us to recognize certified teachers, teacher specialists, assistants, and our principals that are currently serving in the Kentucky Public Schools. This is a program that we're initiating to just get some additional recognition for staff in your schools. You'll be able to see on the PowerPoint, which I believe has been shared with you, and also through our district or our agency social media today, that we are opening this up today through May 30th. If you have an opportunity, it should not take you very long to recommend. You can do up to 3 certified teachers, specialists, assistants, or principals that are currently serving in our schools. So please consider this for an opportunity for recognition. Next slide, please. As always, we've now introduced this competitive grants from KDE, so I'm happy to present these to you from our Office of Finance and Operations. We have a Reading Diagnostic and Intervention Fund competitive grant that is open now through the end of this week, April 24th. And then we also have a Stronger Connections grant, and those applications are due by May 15th. As always, if you have questions about any of our competitive grants, you can go to our website, and there is contact information there, but these are some great opportunities that you may find for your districts. Next slide, please. This was announced yesterday. We are accepting, the Kentucky Board of Education is accepting nominations for the 2023 Grissom Award for Innovation in Special Education. This is for a Kentuckian or a Kentucky organization that has given outstanding dedication to improving achievement for students with disabilities. We are asking for nominations through May 19th, and the winner will be announced and awarded at the August 2023 Kentucky Board of Education meeting. And again, we've shared these in our social media. We will include them in a few Monday messages leading up, and hope to see lots of great nominations from your districts. Next slide, please. And then we just want to close with my updates for you, just a recognition on our Kentucky School for the Deaf, which recently celebrated its 200th anniversary. As you can see here, last Friday, our students found a time capsule back from 1998 and were able to find some items that were in that time capsule. We had a lot of special alumni in town. There was an Olympian, a former CIA agent. Kentucky, as you know, the Kentucky School for the Deaf serves all of our districts in Kentucky. We are thrilled to have that opportunity to provide education for our deaf and hard of hearing students. And we have a lot of information on the bicentennial celebration. On the next slide, you'll see some pictures from the gala, which was held in Lexington. It was a sold-out event. Chair Young and I were there along with the commissioner. We appreciate some of our lawmakers who were with us on Saturday night, and really everyone who has supported our Kentucky School for the Deaf. So on behalf of KSD, thank you so much. And you'll be hearing a lot more from the school on different activities that are planned for the rest of the year. I think I'm going to kick off to Chair Young now.
Thanks so much, Tony, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're enjoying this, what is a beautiful day in Central Kentucky. Next slide, please. Just a quick update about the April meeting of the Kentucky Board of Education. Our action items are listed here. You'll see the Perkins 5 state plan, the budget that goes along with that. We did consider and approve a waiver from Henry County on a district facility plan issue, as well as minimum specs on school buses and approving alternative school-based decision-making council applications. Next slide. As always, these agendas are available on the portal along with video of the meeting. And regarding this slide, I would encourage you, believe it or not, that it would be a great time well spent if you got to view this portion of the April board meeting. We had such a wonderful conversation about literacy in Kentucky and how we can align our work around deeper learning across the Commonwealth with some critical work that needs to be happening in our schools and districts around early literacy. Specifically, Mickey Ray and the team, the literacy team from KDE, along with partners, 3 partners from school districts who are doing great work around literacy development, joined in a conversation with the board about how we can promote a big vision for literacy development aligned with deeper learning in Kentucky. So the team kind of built it around the pillars of United We Learn with an emphasis on vibrant and meaningful learning experiences. So reconciling the importance of building a strong foundation in emergent literacy, connecting through the LETTERS program with high quality reading instruction, Tier 1, and then at the same time looking at the knowledge-based, inquiry-based application of reading to develop the content, knowledge, and skills that all learners need in a deeper learning environment. So I felt like the conversation really helped me reconcile what often feels like an either-or question about, should we be focusing on phonics? Should we be focusing on balanced literacy or integrated literacy or whole language? And really the question is, how can we meet the needs of individual learners to ensure that they have the foundational reading skills that they need to access deeper learning in classrooms? And so hats off to the team who really presented a genuine, authentic, open and vulnerable conversation about reading in a deeper learning state. And so I would encourage you to watch that. I know Mickey and her team stand ready to support districts as you guys engage in LETTERS training and lots of in-district conversations around literacy. Next slide, please. We also had the dessert for me at every meeting is a chance to hear from the field, but particularly always exciting when we get to hear from our students. This happened on a day that we had to pivot to virtual, unfortunately, because of a water main break in Frankfurt. So the members of the Commissioner Student Advisory Council, as you probably know, have been working now since January, even before that, kind of in the aftermath of the Uvalde, Texas school shooting, to take a deep dive into pre-traumatic event kind of considerations, in the event considerations, and then post-traumatic event considerations. And so if you haven't yet seen their report, I urge you to take a look at it. There are 10 really solid recommendations from the students, the most important stakeholder in the public education system, about what they think would be the best way to approach these kinds of, heaven forbid, traumatic events that could happen in our schools. So they did a great job. Those of you who are superintendents in the districts from which these students hail should be very, very proud of them. And also available on that video, if you haven't seen the board meeting video, you might definitely want to tune in to this portion as well. And the report is also available in the portal along with all the other agenda items. So hats off to this team as well. Next slide. One of the things I'll close with before we talk about the next meeting is that we as a board team are also very interested in being relevant to the conversations in the field about high quality teaching and learning in Kentucky, and what that looks like through United We Learn. You're going to hear from Karen and her team in just a minute for an update there, but how we as a board can ensure that the policies and the considerations and the work that we do, frankly, are all connected and directed toward United We Learn. And so we have agreed with one another to establish a board learning agenda where we can take a deeper dive into every aspect of United We Learn, and this concept of the inclusive learner experience. So imagine a college career ready student in the center of these concentric circles about how we can establish best learning practices for vibrant and inclusive learning, as well as an accountability mindset, and then accountability structures with that moving forward will support the kind of learning that we talk about. So this is a way that we can put our money where our mouths are when it comes to our learning agenda as a board, and doing that in partnership with community, with schools and districts, and with our other partners. And so we're going to work in small subcommittees, or actually ad hoc committees, over the course of the next couple of months, and then hopefully come back to the board at our June 6 and 7 meeting to talk about what this kind of work, how this work informs what we do as a board and the overall United We Learn initiative. So to that end, last slide, we meet again. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one. Also, always one of our favorite parts of the board meeting is celebration opportunity. And the winner of this year's 2023 Robinson Award for Diversity and Equity in Public Education is a teacher from Jefferson County Public Schools, Melanie House, who is a teacher of the gifted and talented and the arts, and really, really interesting and compelling life story. So it was a pleasure to recognize and honor Melanie, but even much more of a pleasure to get to have lunch with her and her husband and to talk about the work that she's doing there in Jefferson County Schools. So Superintendent Polio, if you're listening, congratulations to Jefferson County Schools and particularly to Melanie House. Last slide, please. We will meet again on June 6 and 7 back in Frankfurt, and looking forward to that agenda. It's already growing up really nicely. Summer agendas are a lot of fun. At that meeting, we will be announcing the names of our new teacher member of the board and our new student member of the board. So, and saying farewell to Joanna Stevens and to Jude Dale at that meeting, who have been wonderful representatives. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to reach out to me, lou.young@education.ky.gov, and have a great end of the school year. Thanks so much, Tony.
Thank you, Lou. And I have just one more quick thing to share before we head over to our friends over at Veterans Affairs. And this really just goes right off of what Dr. Young was saying. And this is, whoops, do I have the right? Are y'all seeing my slide on letters? Just make sure I have the right thing up there. Can you all see that?
We can, Tony.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. Just to go off of what she had said, our letters phase 2 registration opens on May 1st. Letters is language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. Many of you have had teachers that have participated in this last summer and just really want to know we're going to go all out with this registration. You're going to be hearing a lot about it. So mark that day on your calendars for May 1st. And with that, Jennifer will go ahead and continue to share, and we will kick off to our friends and colleagues over at Veterans Affairs.
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Stephen Buford. I'm the Benefits Division Director with the Kentucky Department of Veteran Affairs. Thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity to sit in your webinar today to discuss the tuition waiver. The tuition waiver is an educational benefit provided by the Commonwealth of Kentucky in recognition of military service of Kentucky veterans. The tuition waiver is provided to children, stepchildren, adopted children, spouses, unremarried widowers. Next slide. An approved tuition waiver. That's the next one, please. I'm sorry. Yeah, the tuition waiver, what it means, when it's approved, that child in that school gets to go to any Kentucky state-funded college or university, both technical school, that's operated and funded by the Kentucky Department of Education for 45 months of tuition waiver. Now, with this tuition waiver, it does not include books, the fees, the room and board. It does expire upon the receipt of any degree or certificate, and it expires when the child turns 26, unless there's an exception for active duty members, which is usually National Guard members that are activated. Next slide. What I would like to go is just over some of the eligibility requirements for the tuition waiver and how it works. Listed on the slide, we have actually 4 different KRSs that cover the tuition waiver. Each one of those KRSs have different prerequisites that's required. So some of the eligibility requirements is the veteran died on active duty or died as a direct result of service-connected disabilities as determined by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. That, as an example, you have a veteran who received lung cancer due to Agent Orange exposure during service in Vietnam. He passes away. That's an example of what a service-connected disability is. The veteran could be living and 100% service-connected disabled through the Department of Veteran Affairs. The veteran must be a current resident of Kentucky or was a resident at the time of death. We may have a total disabled veteran who is not service-connected, that's receiving a non-service connected pension, which is for low income. If he's a wartime veteran, that child is eligible for the tuition waiver. That's one of the categories I think that we miss a lot because it's just not, the information isn't out there that these children do qualify for this waiver. And the last one, upon death of any veteran who served during a wartime period that lived in Kentucky, passed away in Kentucky, or was married to a Kentucky resident at the time of death. Next slide. And we can probably, so what I've done also for your reading purposes, I've broken down each KRS and what the eligibility requirements are and what the waiver passes on to that child or spouse, okay? So you have KRS 505, KRS 507, KRS 512, and KRS 515. In the last quarter of the Kentucky Department of Veteran Affairs, we actually issued 181 tuition waivers for the children of the Commonwealth and some spouses. Next slide. I know I'm running short, I'm running close on my 5 minutes, I apologize. You can go to the next slide, please. Next slide. So what we would like to ask of the Kentucky Board of Education is kind of disseminate this information down to your high school counselors. There may be that one child in that school that thinks they can't go to college because of the expense. This will help that child and many others go to college and get that degree in their future. Is there any questions?
Thanks, Stephen. And certainly you can count on us to help you disseminate it. We have multiple ways of doing that, one of which you're part of right now. There's superintendents and other school administrators from across the state have just heard your presentation. So it's a good way to connect it with them. I'm sure they'll work to disseminate it in their schools. They also have this PowerPoint, but we'll also follow up with you and make sure that we're using all of our communications channels to help you get this great program out and make people more aware of it.
Yes, sir. And if they have any questions, our Kentucky Tuition Waiver Coordinator is Tammy Ray. She's located in Georgetown, Kentucky. They can always email her. If they want, they can email me also or give me a call. I'll make sure that Director Sessions gets my information to you guys. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. We'll let you know if there are any questions that come up later, but thank you for sharing this great opportunity for children of veterans in Kentucky with us. Thanks so much.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, now we've got Beth Hargis, Reagan Satterwhite, Lee Ann Lewis on from our career technical team to talk about some updates with the ATCs. Beth, the new grandmother.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. Next slide, please. So recently, we've had some questions regarding the operation of our state-operated area technology centers and just wanted to provide some clarifications for you. So as indicated on this slide, the salary schedule for the ATC 156 staff, and that does include principals and teachers, it's calculated using the step and rank base average salary for classroom teachers by all public schools in the state. And the salary schedule is calculated every year, but it's not actually executed every year. And of course, that's dependent upon the availability of funds. And so too, while unlikely, it is possible that the salary schedule could be reduced resulting in pay cuts for staff. And if that were the case, we certainly would not execute. We've received questions regarding the 8% increase, salary increase provided to state employees last year and the upcoming 6%, which will be implemented July 1st. And just wanted to clarify that while these raises will be implemented for existing employees, they do not impact the salary scale calculation. We will be evaluating the scale this fall, and the implemented salary schedule will always be retroactive to July 1st. So our payroll personnel are calculating the back pay right now for 156 staff who were hired after July 1st of last year. And so we will get that taken care of. Next slide, please. So regarding ATC programming structures, per KRS 157.069, ATCs are required to have a minimum of 5 different programs in the centers and not just teachers. Okay, next slide. All right, per Kentucky Tech Policy 10.1, when a program no longer meets the needs of students or business and industry, it may be necessary to close that program and explore the possibility of opening new ones. Program closure is guided by our flagging policy, and when an ATC program does not achieve the student-teacher ratio of at least 12.5 students per every teacher, the school will be notified by December 30th that the program has been flagged for closure. So if this is the first time the program has been flagged, it will establish a program improvement committee to develop a plan to increase the enrollment. And then from December 30th through May 1st of the following school year, the committee will work to increase that STR. So for example, if the school is notified of a decision to flag a program in, say, December 2022, the school will have until May 1st of 2024 to increase that enrollment greater than the 12.5 and meet the recommendations of the Program Improvement Committee. Now, if a program is closed and not reopened as another, then that closed teaching position may revert back to OCTE, the Office of Career and Tech Ed, depending on future programming plans. Next slide, please. All right, so any ATC requesting a new program should complete the new program viability study, which can be found on the Career and Technical Education page of the KDE website. And the viability study evaluates the success of or proposed programs by looking at both the program justification and the implementation needs. Next slide. Budgets, and of course, this is always a big topic of conversation, but budgets for ATCs are allocated to the individual schools based on a weighted full-time equivalency, which is the total attend hours divided by 6. ATC budgets are broken down into 3 separate categories, including building maintenance funds, which are provided to the local districts who own the ATC building for the upkeep, staff and substitutes, and then the third category is utilities and general school operations. Next slide. And so Reagan Satterwhite is our policy advisor and with us today, and she's going to address this slide on work-based learning.
Good afternoon. I do just have one brief slide. Our CTE staff wanted to take this opportunity to update districts on some new items that apply to post-secondary readiness via the career readiness indicators. First, in a couple of weeks, a data collection system will be released in Infinite Campus for schools to record data related to co-op and internship courses. Any on-the-job hours that students have earned in those courses since the beginning of this school year and up until June 30th are eligible to count towards the 300-hour minimum to achieve post-secondary readiness. So any data that is entered by July 31st will be included in the 2022-23 accountability report. Secondly, Senate Bill 25 of this most recent legislative session tasked the Kentucky Board of Education with approving the work experience of students that the school is involved in circumstances where students are not enrolled in a co-op or internship course on their schedule. The board and the department are working to establish criteria for approval of these exceptional work experiences. There are many things to consider in order to protect the school district and, most importantly, the student, in addition to making sure that these experiences are consistent and that they're also verifiable. Districts will be receiving further guidance once the local Superintendents Advisory Council has provided input, and an approval process for exceptional work-based learning has been established and approved by the Kentucky Board of Education. So that does it for the Office of Career and Technical Education. If you have questions about any of the information that we shared, make sure that you pop them on the Google form. Thanks.
Thanks, Reagan. Thanks, Beth. And we'll make sure that we get in questions at the end. If we can answer those while we're here and have you with us, we're glad to do that. If not, we'll make sure we follow up with everyone on those. Now we'll shift over to Chief Performance Officer Karen Dodd to give us an update on the Kentucky United We Learn Council. So, Karen.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. I've got a brief update. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So first of all, the purpose of the United We Learn Council. This was put together to bring together all of our stakeholders, and really we wanted to have a very diverse group of stakeholders to help us figure out really where we want to go with education as we move forward. And we got exactly that. We have a fantastic group of not only educators and students, principals, superintendents, but also community members, parents, business leaders, legislators, all coming together to really think through this work. Next slide, please. So we have about 75 members, and I say about because with 75 members, you can imagine we have some folks dropping off now and then, and we also find that we have some holes on some of the committees every once in a while, and so we add some people. So we're averaging about 75 people right now. They meet twice a year. Our kickoff meeting was in November, and we're getting ready to meet again just next week. Tuesday and Wednesday is the second convening, so we're looking forward to that. Our interim chair is Audrey Gilbert. She is a student here in Frankfort County, and she's doing a fantastic job leading this council. The council is broken into 3 committees, and these align with the big ideas from United We Learn. So the Vibrant Learning Experiences team, accelerating innovation and creating a bold new future. Next slide, please. So all 3 of these standing committees meet on a monthly basis. That began in December or January. They most recently met in March. So I'm just going to give you a real quick update from each of them on their latest meeting. So first is the Vibrant Learning Experiences Committee. They met on March 6th. That is led by Dustin Dunning, another student. He did a great job. They talked about the upcoming election. So we're going to have a new chair and a co-chair for the overall council. So each committee has a chair and or vice chair, or some have a vice chair, and but this is for the overall council. We are getting ready for to name a new chair and vice chair. This group also, they really wanted to focus. Where are we going? Back one more. There you go. They really wanted to focus on what kinds of things are happening in schools, both inside and outside of Kentucky, that would be considered vibrant learning experiences. So they did a couple site visits, one to Marshall County and one to Eminence Independent. Those just happened, I think, a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. So very exciting stuff going on there. They also invited in Sarah McCann, who is from the Canopy Project, and she shared with the team a database that they've put together that is really collecting innovative practices from schools across the nation. And so that was a really great resource that can be used if we're looking for ideas for innovation within our schools. You can go to the next slide. Bold New Future, they met on March 7th, and that is led by Caleb Bates. He did a great job. The team really wanted to dive into the grant itself and look at what are the deliverables in that grant, what are each of the partners that we have, what are they responsible for? So they spent a lot of time really looking over that grant and also looking at the themes and recommendations that came out of the United We Learn report. And you'll recall that at the Education Summit a year and a half ago, that was released. And so they wanted to look at that again, look at the 10 recommendations or themes that came out of there, and make sure that the work that they're doing is completely aligned with that original report. You can go to the next slide. And then finally, Accelerating Innovation met on March 8th, and I've got a typo here. There actually are co-leads, Kathy Stovall and Sarah Hatton co-lead this committee. And they are looking at assessment and accountability. So they wanted to see what's going on both inside of Kentucky and externally across the nation and internationally. They presented to the board on the 12th, so the second day of the board meeting. And so if you're interested in really hearing what they have found, it was a very interesting report. They did a great job putting that together. I would really encourage you to go out, listen to that portion of the board meeting. It was very well received, I think, by the board members. So that was very exciting. Then you can go on to the next slide, please. So next steps, we do have a monthly newsletter that goes out. If you're interested in receiving that, I think you can get hold of Tony or someone on her team and they can get you added to that distribution list. We also have a web page that gets updated. We have all of the committee agendas and meeting minutes go out there so you can stay up to date. You can watch any of the meetings that happen out there. And as I said, the next convening is coming up next week in Shelby County, and we'll have updates from that convening coming up in May. Commissioner?
Thank you, Karen. This is Rhonda Sims, Office of Assessment and Accountability. So we're going to move right on with the assessment update. The Commissioner needs to step away for just a moment. I have with me Dr. Jennifer Stafford to help with that in a few minutes. Well, it must be spring in Kentucky because everything's in bloom. You may have some allergies and the horses are racing, but it's also time to talk about spring testing. I do want to mention that we have had quite a bit of successful test experiences already this calendar year. We have tested both fall ACT senior retakes. We've had the alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment test window 1, which completes around December and early January. We've had our testing of English language learners that's federally required called Access and Alternate Access. And we've also completed the Spring Junior ACT. Now, moving forward, the dates that we are looking for this spring administration, you'll see in the upcoming slide. Beginning April 17 will be the second window for our alternate students on the Kentucky Summative Assessment. And the Transition Attainment Record, which is a checklist completed with the help of teachers and parents and staff for alternate assessment students, will be entered by May 30th. Then you all are well aware that the Kentucky Summative Assessment is administered during your last 14 days of the district calendar. So this varies a bit across the state based on your calendar. And we know that testing and accountability can bring quite a bit of stress with it. So we put a lot of emphasis in our office, and much of this work is led by Dr. Stafford, on what supports your district assessment coordinators and building support assessment coordinators have to sort of make this a smooth testing experience. So Dr. Stafford, I'm going to turn to you and let you kind of highlight some resources that we have out there.
Thank you, Rhonda, and good afternoon, everyone. We started with supporting the administration of the Kentucky Summative Assessment and alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment in February, beginning with the intense training during our February DAC trainings. We released videos and was in local co-ops supporting question and answer sessions that took place both virtually and in person. Moving forward, we realize that there are quite a few new district assessment coordinators and building assessment coordinators. So we've put into place some new support. So if you'll move to the next slide. For the Kentucky Summative Assessment, we're offering office hours. We've previously offered office hours through our ACT administration, and they are quite successful. So we took that learning and applied it to the Kentucky Summative Assessment and had our first office hour last week. And this is a time for DACs, BACs, and test administrators to talk one-on-one with both testing vendors, representatives, as well as KDE staff on specific questions that they have for preparing for and administering the different assessments. So we had our first one last Wednesday, April 12th, was attended by over 100 people and was quite successful. Had a lot of good support and direction provided to our local staff. So the next two, we're offering two more. The next one will be on Friday, April 28th. And then during the administration, we're also offering one on Wednesday, May 17th. So all of this is to, again, support the individual questions and that individual person at the local school is able to ask questions and feel more prepared for the administration. As we move to the next slide, additional resources have been released for the Kentucky Summative Assessment that includes released items. Released items were provided last fall to each district that had data related to each of the items. Now, each of these items in these released set were operational in spring of 2022. So those items were administered, and those released items contain not only the item, but the anchor sets, annotated forms, and other resources that will be very valuable for understanding the content area and the items that are offered and the different types of items that are offered on the Kentucky Summative Assessment. We've had practice tests previously, as well as online tutorials to help teachers prepare for the administration of the assessments, as well as students can go through those online tutorials so that they understand the platform that the Kentucky Summative Assessment is offered on. Since it's an online assessment using Pearson's online platform, TestNav, there are opportunities to learn that different platform and tutorials. Other resources include the manuals, and the Climate and Safety Survey is also available publicly that students respond to. So those items are available for teachers to understand what is and students to understand what is going to be asked on those different forms. Moving on to the next slide, the alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment has similar resources, sample test, released items, manuals, and of course the alternate Climate and Safety Survey that has been modified for our students in the lowest cognitive abilities. Moving on to the next slide, after testing is complete, there will be projects throughout the summer that we have invited Kentucky teachers to be a part of. We sent out through our district assessment coordinator and network and application for teachers to apply for projects that is happening that include standard setting validation that's organized by Pearson. We're going to go back and look at many of the student performance levels that were set last year, make sure that they are still reasonable moving forward. It's going to take place June 5th through 9th. Being 1 day per content area. And also we're going to do a English language proficiency standards alignment that's looking at the EL standards and our Kentucky content standards and make sure that those align. And then finally, we're going to have some alternate assessment content and bias committees that take place this summer and this fall. So lots of good work happening and a lot of effort on our district personnel and the good work that they are doing. And as always, we are here to support them in whatever capacity that we can. If you have any questions, please put those in the spreadsheet and we will address those as possible.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just a reminder, we're very open to hearing from people at any point, be it superintendent, principal, or your testing staff. So please reach out after the meeting and the Google form is complete if you need assistance. I believe that Dr. Byron Darnell is up next.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. And good afternoon, and thank you for your patience. I know this is just a little, as always, it's a lot of information, so I will be quick just to bring you up to speed on a few items. So if you would advance to the next slide, please. It's important to note that Senate Bill 49 authorizes any person receiving emergency certification during the 22-23 school year can also renew that certification for the 23-24 school year. So this has been at least a hot topic in conversations that I've had over the past month and a half. So again, any person with an emergency certification for this school year is eligible to renew that certification again for the 23-24 school year. Mr. Perry is going to talk about various legislative topics, but there is also an addition to Senate Bill 49 that extends the alternative pathway, so option 6, option 7, from a 2-year window of completion to a 4-year window of completion. Next slide, please. However, it is important to understand that candidates pursuing certification to teach exceptional children or interdisciplinary early childhood education through option 6 or option 7 will only be eligible for 2 renewals of the 1-year temporary provisional certificate in order to comply with federal law. So please make note of that important differentiation from the other content areas. Next slide, please. Also, at the most recent EPSB meeting, the board approved the Praxis Score recency extension to 10 years. So previously, this has been a 5-year recency requirement for Praxis assessments. The board approved moving that to 10 years. So Praxis scores are valid for a 10-year window. Also want to just remind everyone of the approval back in December to pilot alternate assessment options for licensure, and that includes the -1 standard error of a measure we've talked about before, or the Praxis Performance Assessment for Teachers, or the PPAT. So a couple of important aspects for licensure. And then just one final note that is not on the slide, but I will bring up. Also, there is no longer a required admissions assessment for graduate level programs other than option 7, which is specified in statute. So again, graduate level programs no longer have an admissions assessment requirement with the exception of option 7. So thank you for just a moment of your time. And as always, happy to assist in any way possible. Dr. Glass, are you back with us?
I am, thanks. So now I think we'll shift over to our legislative update and with Brian Perry, and also transition right into our most recent guidance document. So Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Glass. Good afternoon, everyone. I know that by now most people have gone through all of the bills that were passed this legislative session. So we're going to do a pretty high level overview and then get to the guidance updates that we have. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, barring a special session being called by the governor, they won't be back in session until next January. All of the bills with emergency clauses became effectively immediately upon enrollment. So lots of those are already in effect. The bills that did not have an emergency clause or otherwise effective start date listed in the legislation start 90 days or become effective 90 days after sine die. That is June 29th this year. So you can see the link to our non-regulatory guidance. As you probably know, the emergency guidance came out yesterday. So that is now posted. There's quite a bit to go through on that. So if you have questions about it, please let us know. All right, next slide. So we're not going to go through all the bills individually, but I did put them on here just for your reference. The bills that have an asterisk beside them have an emergency clause, or part of the bill has an emergency clause. So those are all covered in the guidance that we posted yesterday. The bills that do not have an emergency clause, we are working on guidance for those now. We hope to have that out to you all. Oops, lost. Did I lose the slides there? There. We hope to have the non-regulatory guidance posted for you all in early June. That should give you all plenty of time, hopefully, to get ready for those bills to go into effect on the 29th of June. Just a couple of notes. Obviously, SB 150, I think, is the one that most folks were waiting on guidance. There's several pieces to that. There's several pieces to the guidance around SB 5. That is the program, events, or materials that are harmful to minors. I think a lot of your districts already have a process in place for that, but we did work with KSBA on that guidance as required by the legislation. So the model policy that they push out should mirror what we have posted. If you're not aware of SJR 98, I just want to make everybody aware. This is directing CPE to do a study of post-secondary, and you'll see a couple of things mentioned there. I think the question we've been getting a lot is how this might impact dual credit. We don't know yet. This is just directing CPE to do a study at this point, but there certainly will be some potential impacts on dual credit. So we'll keep an eye on that one as we move forward. Next slide, please. Again, the bills that have an asterisk are the emergency bills. The ones without will go into effect on the 29th. So lots more House bills to go through here. 319 is the omnibus bill from Chair Tipton that addresses teacher recruitment and retention. If you watched Kentucky Tonight last night, you saw that him clarifying once again that this is really just a first step. I think that he intends to come back and ask for some appropriations to go with some things that were in this bill, as well as some other pieces to address the teacher shortage issue. So hopefully we'll learn more about that as the interim starts. So next slide. Here, I think 538 will be the one that you all are probably most interested in seeing some guidance around. That's the student discipline bill that got a lot of work during the session. So we'll work on getting that ready for you all. House Bill 31 is another one to be aware of in that it requires automatic defibrillators in school buildings now. So please check that one if you have not already. And then 553 for the growth districts that are on the call this afternoon. This is the bill that addresses you all and will provide additional SEEK funding for those growth districts before the end of the fiscal year. I believe Robin Kinney's team has already sent out some communications about that. So be watching for so just double check on that. Next slide. So here are all the sections that are in 319, just a very high level overview of what all is in there. Be aware that teacher mobility compact language is in there. I do not know what state we are to adopt that, but once the threshold is met, you all will be able to then hire teachers coming from other compact states that are licensed in those states. So hopefully for some of the districts around the military bases in particular, you all might be able to fill some positions a little more easily. And I'll let you all read through the rest of those sections. I think the ones that pertain to you all most are probably 9 and 10, relating to teachers and other staff taking sick and personal leave and not having to do notarized affidavits anymore. So just be aware of that. And again, we'll have a lot to say about 319, or not a lot to say, but just a lot of guidance around 319 when we get that out in early June. I think that's really the really high level overview of the bills. Like I said, I think a lot of you all have already gone through them a lot. If you have not seen it yet, the interim committee calendar is posted on the the LRC website. So please be aware of that. They'll start meeting in June. I think June 6th is the first education committee meeting, and then the 7th, I believe, is the first appropriations and revenue committee meeting. So if you don't follow along with those, you might want to. I'm sure that there will be a lot of conversations happening as we head into a budget year again, with an eye on some appropriations, particularly around recruitment and retention of teachers. All right. So with that, we'll move into some of the conversations about the guidance. We have our General Counsel, Todd Allen, and Dr. Brewer on with us as well. If there are any questions, don't see any questions on the spreadsheet. Just trying to double check to make sure we don't have any. We do not. Okay, so
as I say, I don't see anything yet, Brian.
No, I don't see any. So like I said, the guidance is posted for the emergency bills. Please take a look at it. There's a lot to go through. As Dr. Glass mentioned in his communication to you all yesterday, a lot of the bills are pretty prescriptive. So we do not have all of the answers that I think some of you all are looking for. But if you have questions that we can assist with, please let us know. I'm also happy to start compiling frequently asked questions that we can pass along to members just to make them aware. But yeah, please let us know. Again, for the non-emergency bills, we have started working on that guidance, and we hope to push that out to you all in early June, well ahead of the 29th. So hopefully that will give you all plenty of time with that. Dr. Brewer, Todd, do you all have any other comments?
I did want to just point out, I'm sure you are aware that under Senate Bill 5, we did link the model policy that KDE developed in collaboration with KSBA. That is something that the department was required to share around that resolution policy. So for those of you who are interested in reading through that and potentially your local school boards adopting that policy, both the policy and procedures are linked within the guidance document.
Thank you, Dr. Brewer. Todd, anything?
Nothing further, Brian. I appreciate it. Happy to answer any questions that folks may have to the extent we're able to answer those for you.
Absolutely. Well, that's a very high-level overview of what's been happening the last 4 or 5 months. But please stay tuned. Like I said, the interim starts in about a month. So get ready. It's going to be a sprint to the 24 budget session. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Meredith, and thanks, Todd. So I think we are through the slides and the presentation that we had. Let's check over, Tony. Do we have any questions come in over the course of the webcast?
No, I don't see any in there, Commissioner, and I don't think I have anything in my email box either. Okay. Well, we'll stand by for additional questions that may come in later. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and thanks, KDE staff, for pulling together all the slides and information for this webcast. Our next webcast will be on May 9th, so mark your calendars for that, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Yeah, and just some exciting news there. The commissioner and I will be doing that webcast from Western Kentucky. We'll be visiting Mayfield and I believe Dawson Springs Independent. Not sure which one we'll bring it live to you from, but it'll be one or the other. Looking forward to that visit to Western Kentucky next month. All right. Thanks, everybody.